Alexander the Great, the man who conquered half the known world before turning 33. We've heard he never lost a battle. We know the basic facts. But here's what separates Alexander from every other conqueror in history. He didn't conquer for power. He conquered to sustain his identity. Most leaders pursue conquest to become something greater. Alexander often appears to pursue it to avoid becoming nothing at all. His campaigns weren't about ambition in the conventional sense. They were about maintaining a psychological structure that would collapse the moment he stopped moving. He didn't expand because he wanted more. He expanded because stopping would mean confronting a question he couldn't answer. Who am I when I'm not conquering? That's what made him unique. His entire sense of self depended on perpetual motion. Identity equaled expansion. Remove the expansion, and the identity disintegrates. Most men chase power to become something. Alexander chased it to avoid becoming nothing. Alexander's psychology was built from two opposing forces most humans never experience simultaneously. On one side, Philip, his father, one of history's most accomplished kings. On the other, Olympias, his mother, insisting he was descended from Zeus, possibly divinely fathered. This created something catastrophic inside him, a split identity that couldn't reconcile human limitation with divine expectation. Consider what this does to a young mind. Most sons of accomplished fathers feel pressure to measure up. Alexander felt existential terror that there would be nothing left to achieve. Ancient sources record him lamenting that Philip was leaving him no great deeds. That's not competitive anxiety. That's fundamental fear that your father's success erases the possibility of your own significance. But his mother didn't just tell him to be great, she told him he was divine. That failure wasn't disappointing, it was metaphysically impossible. If you're the son of Zeus, defeat contradicts your nature. Risk becomes validation rather than danger. When Alexander led cavalry charges into the densest enemy formations, when he scaled fortress walls while arrows fell like rain, he wasn't being brave despite fear. He was verifying his divinity through survival. He didn't test the gods, he verified them. Every risk he survived became evidence. His identity demanded proof through danger. Risk wasn't a cost, it was the mechanism through which he maintained belief in himself. And here's where it becomes darker. He chose this consciously. Alexander was obsessed with Homer's Iliad. He saw himself as Achilles reborn. The choice Achilles faced, long peaceful life versus short glorious one, Alexander adopted as his operating system, not as metaphor, as literal life strategy. He preferred death in battle to growing old in obscurity. This wasn't recklessness. This was heroic fatalism, a philosophical commitment that made consolidation psychologically impossible. His greatest enemy wasn't Persia, it was rest. Conquest wasn't ambition, it was maintenance of self. The moment he stopped moving, the entire psychological structure would collapse. What separated Alexander from every other warrior was his fusion of intellect with instinct, in a way that created something entirely new. He thought like a philosopher and struck like a predator simultaneously. Aristotle tutored him for several formative years. The greatest philosophical mind of the age taught him systematic thinking about everything from politics to biology. But Alexander didn't just learn philosophy, he weaponized it. He brought analytical frameworks directly onto the battlefield. His military genius wasn't about fighting harder. It was about thinking structurally about how violence actually functions. Think about his approach. He perfected his father's phalanx and companion cavalry, but the innovation was treating warfare as a system. The phalanx was the anvil, immovable, fixing enemies in position. The cavalry was the hammer, fast, lethal, personally led by Alexander, crashing into weak points he'd identified through analysis. He integrated multiple unit types into an organism that could adapt mid-battle. Light infantry for harassment, hypaspists as rapid response, allied forces adding specialized capabilities. The result was an army that could reconfigure itself for any terrain, any enemy, any tactical problem. At Gaugamela, his instinct to drive straight toward Darius wasn't tactical impulse. It was psychological choreography. Kill the father, inherit the world. He created a gap in the Persian line through calculated oblique movement, then drove through it personally, heading directly for the Persian king. When Darius fled, the entire army's morale collapsed. Alexander understood that destroying the symbol of Persian power was more effective than destroying the army itself. He didn't just win at Gaugamela, he solved it like a mathematical equation written in blood. This is cognition operating at a different level. He approached warfare the way a scientist approaches experiments: hypothesis, testing, adaptation, but he never lost the instinct. When gaps opened, he didn't analyze, he charged. His education under Aristotle wasn't separate from his military success. It was foundational. He thought systematically about chaos. He brought order to violence through intellectual frameworks that let him see patterns his enemies couldn't recognize. Other commanders relied on experience and courage. Alexander relied on cognitive architecture that turned warfare into applied philosophy. That's why he never lost. He wasn't just fighting better, he was operating in a different conceptual space entirely. Alexander didn't just conquer territories, he systematically documented them. His campaigns were simultaneously military expeditions and intellectual explorations. He marched with specialists as well as soldiers, botanists, geographers, natural historians, professional surveyors whose only job was measuring distances and recording observations. This wasn't intellectual vanity. This was the psychology of someone who needed to map what he owned and own what he mapped. When his forces encountered unknown plants, animals, peoples, Alexander had teams document them. These records transformed Greek understanding of the world. His bematists produced geographic measurements of unprecedented accuracy that remained standard for centuries. His ambition wasn't just territorial, it was intellectual. He wanted to know what existed beyond each horizon. His desire to reach the great outer ocean wasn't metaphor. He literally wanted to find the edge of the world. After reaching the Indian Ocean, Alexander ordered his admiral Nearchus to sail from the Indus Delta along the coast to the Persian Gulf. This was enormous risk, with no military necessity. His army was marching overland. This was pure exploration, an attempt to chart unknown waters and understand geography for its own sake. Why? Because conquest without understanding was incomplete. He needed to comprehend what he controlled, to document it, to make it knowable. This is the psychology of control manifesting as curiosity. Where others saw conquered land, Alexander saw mysteries to solve. When he faced Tyre, an island fortress considered impregnable, Alexander's engineers built a causeway across half a mile of water while under constant attack. The engineering involved represented achievement comparable to any battle. This reveals his cognitive approach. Problems existed to be solved, not avoided. Impossibility was invitation. War became optimization problem. Conquest became laboratory. But there's something darker here. When you treat the world as a puzzle to solve, when does it end? When you've mapped everything, conquered everything, what happens to a mind built entirely on the need for new horizons? Alexander's psychology demanded perpetual discovery, but the world is finite. Alexander didn't want just to dominate the Persian Empire, but also to fuse with it, to create something that had never existed. After defeating Darius, most conquerors would install their own governors and extract tribute. Alexander adopted Persian customs, wore Persian royal dress, incorporated Persian ceremonies, appointed Persian nobles to high positions. His vision wasn't extraction, it was synthesis. He wanted to create a biological empire, fusion at the genetic level. The mass weddings at Susa embody this perfectly. Alexander and 92 senior officers married Persian noblewomen in a single ceremony. Thousands of his men married Asian women with state support. These weren't merely political marriages. They represented deliberate biological integration, creating a new elite that blended cultures through bloodlines. His Macedonian companions hated this. They'd conquered the empire and expected to dominate as victors. Alexander's insistence on treating Persians as equals offended their entire worldview. This tension exploded in mutinies throughout his later campaigns. But Alexander persisted because he believed empire could be creative, not just acquisitive. That you could build new civilization by deliberately mixing cultures at the most intimate level. Marriage, governance, worship. Dozens of cities, many named Alexandria, positioned along trade routes. Not just military outposts, but centers where Greek settlers lived alongside locals. Spaces designed for cultural interaction and fusion. The most famous, Alexandria in Egypt, became one of history's great intellectual centers. He didn't impose Greek gods on conquered peoples. He respected local deities. In Egypt, crowned pharaoh. In Babylon, restored temples. In Persia, adopted royal protocols while maintaining Greek philosophy. This reveals his deepest psychological drive. Creative transformation. He didn't want to own the world. He wanted to transform it. But this vision came with costs. His increasing adoption of Persian absolutism alienated those who'd fought beside him. His demand for prostration violated Macedonian values. During one drunken argument, he killed Clitus, one of his oldest companions who'd saved his life in battle. Hyper-rational mind meeting emotionally volcanic core. A man who could envision synthesis of civilizations, but couldn't manage his own impulses. He stopped being a king of men and became an experiment in civilization. Alexander's effectiveness emerged from a psychological equation history has rarely witnessed. Identity fused completely with expansion. Intellect weaponized through systematic thinking. Curiosity driving conquest. And creative vision attempting to birth new civilization. But here's the paradox that defines his legacy. The same mechanisms that made him inevitable made him unsustainable. His psychology demanded perpetual motion in a finite world. His vision required transformation that his own people resisted. His mind could conceive synthesis of civilizations but couldn't conceive its own limits. The question Alexander's life poses isn't whether greatness requires sacrifice. We know it does. The question is whether certain forms of greatness are structurally incompatible with survival. Whether the psychological architecture enabling transcendent achievement contains within it the seeds of inevitable collapse. Alexander died at 32, his body exhausted, his empire fragmenting the moment he stopped moving. What remains isn't just an empire or a legacy of cities. It's a revelation about human potential and its limits, about what happens when ambition, intellect, and identity fuse so completely that stopping becomes existential death. His life stands as both inspiration and warning, showing us what humans can achieve when psychological forces align toward a single purpose, while simultaneously revealing the costs such alignment demands. If this exploration has deepened your understanding of leadership, genius, and their inherent tensions, I'd appreciate you subscribing for more examinations of history's most consequential minds. Thank you for watching.